7:30. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dominate the Game, create a winning SEO strategy to generate leads and grow your top line, presented by Strat Marketing, IMEC, and IMA. We're pleased to welcome back Parin Mody of Strat Marketing. He will be our presenter today, and he's the managing partner of Strat Marketing. With over 2 decades of experience, Parin leads an expert demand generation agency that helps industrial manufacturing clients achieve unambiguous and quantifiable organic sales growth across the US, EMEA, and APAC. Parin has built and positioned Strat Marketing to be a value-added marketing service provider that strives to create a culture of quantified, sales-driven marketing initiatives leading to sustainable business growth through channel management, diversification, new customer acquisition, and retention strategies and tactical execution. So welcome, Parin. I'd also like to welcome our panelists. We have Brian Black. He's the managing partner of VMC Chinese Parts. Jacob Meyer, owner and chief business development officer at the Armalloy Corporation, and Chris Blumhoff, general manager of FN Smith. My name is Jacqueline Kaloje, and I'm a technical specialist for growth services with IMEC. I will be your moderator for today. If you're not familiar, IMEC is comprised of a team of industry experts with the goal of igniting manufacturing excellence in Illinois. And one way we do that is by helping manufacturers develop robust marketing programs. Today's program is also supported by the Illinois Manufacturers Association, the country's oldest state manufacturing association, with an active advocacy agenda to support manufacturers and their employees. Before we begin, a quick reminder that today's session is being recorded, and within a couple of days, you will receive the recording via email, as well as any slide decks of the presentation and related resources. We encourage you to use the chat window and ask questions and share your thoughts throughout the presentation, and we'll answer them as we go along. So please join me in welcoming our presenter, Parin.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, IMEC, for hosting such a wonderful forum. I personally am excited myself because the 3 individuals joining us have accomplished a lot in terms of business growth, and they're very disparate businesses. So I think there's going to be something in this for everybody. From my perspective, I am tasked to kind of set the stage, so to speak, or level the playing field. So I wanted to quickly go through some Cliff Notes version of our marketing tactic that we're going to talk about today, just to make sure everybody's singing from the same song sheet. So I'm going to breeze through this before we quickly get into a panel discussion. So allow me a second to share my screen real quick. So one thing about strategy is, from our perspective, SEO, as we call it, search engine optimization, is what we call cost of doing business. Why? Is because there are many ways to connect with a buyer. Traditionally, we would always take the time to build a relationship. But these days, we don't really have the time for it. Neither do we have the patience to build a relationship and then get into a sales process. We're at a point where we want everything when we want it, where we want it, how we want it, but we want it now. So given that, technology is the best resource for us to stay in front of our buyers. The other aspect is internet. Everybody is online. Everybody is Googling, whether we're looking for the best TV to suit our needs, or we're looking for a partner in our supply chain. There are about 63,000 searches per second on just Google. So the bigger question is, if everybody's online, are you and your business online? Because if you're not visible, people don't know about you. The days of cold calling are long gone. So the idea is, we believe that the traditional philosophy of building a relationship still holds true. The criteria still holds true, but the way we go about it is what has changed. That's where strategy comes into play. I won't necessarily go into the details of strategy because I want to get to the panel discussion, but I think the only couple of things we'll mention is, for every business owner today, marketing is not necessarily just media kits and events. It is a huge, huge help to your sales team. There are sales-driven marketing channels. There are performance-driven marketing channels. So to show that we have about $235 million in revenue impacts that are specifically allocated to marketing channels and marketing execution. So please look at marketing as a faction of your sales arm and not necessarily just media kits. But agreed that marketing is, the goal of marketing is to be in the right place at the right time with the right message. So the question is, how do we go about doing that? If we're just starting out, where do we want to start and why? So here's a chart that talks about, where do prospects typically go to look for products and services? Website and email, number 1 and 2 are those places, are marketing channels that vendors normally want to use to engage with your prospects. So if you are a business owner who's starting out, you want to look at your website and the way you talk to your prospects when it comes to helping them educate on your capabilities. Second, SEO, organic search, has been proven to be among the top 3 marketing channels that drives leads for your business, in addition to, of course, with the conversion, the revenue that goes with it. So please be mindful that organic search is a critical aspect of growth that every business owner should take advantage of. Lastly, ROI. Every business owner wants to know what they're getting for their time and dollar investment. Search, again, search engine optimization is among the top 3 channels where business owners have seen one of the best ROI when it comes to quality lead generation. So SEO that we're talking about today is one of the most critical aspects. If you're starting out, that is one of the first places that you want to look into. Now that we know something about SEO and the importance of SEO to your prospect in terms of how they procure information, and to your business from a perspective of lead generation and conversion, the question is, what is SEO and how do we go about it? From that perspective, SEO is nothing but just a set of practices that are designed to help you advocate your services and products in Google search. So if you search for anything on Google, you'll see 2 specific sections. One is a paid section that is designated by ads, and then the other is organic. So here, the goal of an SEO program, search engine optimization, is to get your company, your products, services, capabilities listed among the top 10 choices for a prospect to engage with. The ideal goal is for you to be in top 10 because 95% of the traffic is lost after the first page. But of course, we have to learn our way to it. And the way we do that is, there are 2 critical components for SEO. One is what we call on-page SEO. On-page SEO, in essence, is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's basically ensuring the nuts and bolts and the plumbing of your website, the topology, the architecture, the programming of the website is in a way that a search engine bot, like Google search engine bot, can index your site. Because if Google doesn't know what your site is about, it can't send people to your site. The bullet points you see are just some aspects that Google's search algorithm, and I keep saying Google because they've got majority of the market share when it comes to search, but at the same time, Google, Yahoo, Bing, they all kind of have the same attributes. So content optimization, so that's basically the 2 lines that you see when you do a search on Google. Indexing, whether it is your URL resolves or robots.txt. All of those things ensure that Google's search engine finds what it's looking for, where it's looking for, in the format that it's looking for. So basically, it allows Google to understand and what we call index your website. Moving on, so to us, on-page optimization is extremely critical because without that, there is no SEO. But once you do that, and it's not a one and done deal because Google does tend to update its algorithm on an ongoing basis. Typically, there are 2 major algorithm updates a year. So you do need to do it on an ongoing basis. But at the end of the day, once you have met the best practices, it's a lot more tweaking unless it is a drastic algorithm change. But that becomes the ticket to the game. The critical factor to success, as in where the rubber meets the road, is what we call off-page optimization. So off-page optimization is all about building a level of trust with Google. So whereas on-page optimization is all about credibility, where you're telling Google that your site has the content, it has rich content, engaging content, it answers the questions that a prospect is looking for. And the way you establish credibility is by updating your website on an ongoing basis, making sure the cybersecurity aspects are taken care of. So that's what tells Google that you are up to snuff on the credibility factor, whereas the off-page piece is all about building a level of trust. So there's something called domain authority. Domain authority is all about how much Google trusts your website. So for example, if somebody goes to LinkedIn and searches for a product or service, once they've searched for a product or service, if your company name or your capability comes to play, and if they click on it and gets to your website, from Google's perspective, LinkedIn is a legitimate domain. There aren't bot traffic, there isn't anything black hat about it. And that means that the person coming from LinkedIn to your website is a legitimate person. And if that person engages on your website, as in goes to a couple of pages and spends some time on your website, then Google knows that at this point, this is a legitimate website. So in other words, this is building trust by association. So what we're trying to do here is build a contextually relevant ecosystem of domains that are higher domain authority than yours. And as a result, just by association, you will start enhancing your domain authority. So for example, IMEC has a Made in Illinois database. If you register your company with the description of your capabilities and a link to your website, there is what we call a backlink from that Made in Illinois classified to your website. That allows Google to say, okay, I understand IMEC, I understand Made in Illinois, they're reputable sources, and if you are connected with them, you are probably reputable as well. And then as Google starts sending people to you, the proof is in the pudding. If you've done your job on the website with respect to on-page optimization, more and more people will engage, less people will bounce, and Google will believe in your website more and more. And now it becomes a snowball effect. So in other words, you probably want to take about 2 to 3 months to set your ducks in a row, and that's when you'll start seeing the needle move, because it takes about 8 to 10 weeks for Google to index your changes and then to reflect those changes in its search results. So if you're doing search engine optimization in-house or you're working with a partner, these are the 2 main categories that you want to kind of get to the bottom of, to say what's happening from an on-page standpoint. Are we basically just installing like a Yoast plugin on your website that basically just checks the copy of your content and checks if the content is SEO compliant? Or is it more than that? So make sure that whether it is your partner or whether you're doing it in-house, you address both components of SEO. Lastly, every business owner, every job function will want to understand metrics. So the key metrics, and here's where Google has made its money, right, is offering transparency. Search engine optimization is one such channel that allows you to be most cost effective, but offers you one of the highest ROI. Why? Because with the same amount of effort on an ongoing basis, you can compound your results over time. So in other words, if you have 10 visitors coming in on month 1, you might have 20 visitors coming in on month 3. But from that point on, because of everything that you've done from an on-page standpoint, everything that you've done from an off-page standpoint, the more Google starts trusting you, the more the more it's going to elevate your ranking in the search. And the higher you are, the more likelihood of people coming to your website. And the more people coming to your website and the more they engage and the less they bounce, the more Google is going to send more people to your website, right? So it becomes like an infinite loop. And as a result, it allows you to attract prospects from all kinds of areas where you may not necessarily have even explored, whether it comes to diversification tactics or anything like that. So as a business owner, from a metric standpoint, you want to keep track of how many people are inquiring, whether it is for an RFI, whether it is just to understand your capabilities better, how many people are coming in from your Google search, and what kind of conversion rate are you seeing? Because you could get 100 people in, but of those 100 people, how many are turning into quotes or legitimate prospects who turn into leads over a period of time? And organic traffic, because you would expect that your percentage of leads would be a subset of the percentage of organic traffic that you get. So if you're doing your job right, both of those needles should keep moving on an ongoing basis. From a slightly technical standpoint, the on-page metrics is all about core web vitals. Web vitals is a new thing, the page experience that Google has introduced, I believe, a year or so ago, where it's looking at end user experience. In other words, as I said, as a society, we're getting less and less patient. So Google is now imposing certain best practices to say, how long does it take for the main area of your content to load on your mobile device or on your desktop or your laptop or whatever. So there are specific things that make up web vitals, which goes into LCPs and all of those things, but it is something to keep track of, because that is going to determine the credibility factor in Google's perspective. Engagement metrics, if you have a person coming to your website, how much time are they spending? Are they going to 1 or 2 pages because maybe they just got to your homepage and left? So that doesn't necessarily work. I mean, if you're working with a partner and your partner says your organic traffic doubled from, say, 10 to 20, or 100 to 1,000, or whatever the case may be. But if you have more than 50% bounce rate, that ought to tell you that that's not necessarily good traffic. And in that scenario, there's a double whammy, because in essence, you're probably paying a partner, but now Google is docking you because of your high bounce rate, right? So you want to make sure that you have engaging traffic, even if you don't have high volume of traffic. And page depth tells you that. Percentage of return visitors gives you a good quality measure on the quality of content that you have. Are you updating your content? Are you staying front and center to your prospect? Do they look at you as a trusted advisor? Are they coming to you on an ongoing basis and looking at you as a resource for them? So that's another factor for you to look at. From an off-page metric standpoint, like I mentioned, domain authority. Your domain authority, which for all practical purposes is the amount of trust Google has in your domain. So they've just quantified that. Is that needle moving on an ongoing basis? And just as important is your referral traffic. Referral traffic is things like I said, IMEC, Made in Illinois database, something like that, LinkedIn, or any of your social media channels. If you have associations with those high domain authority channels and they're bringing you quality people, it is going to help you get more and more people a lot faster. So that should tell you as a business owner in terms of how should you evaluate your in-house or working with a partner SEO program in terms of its effectiveness, both to your top line and to the effectiveness of your quality of prospects coming to your website. Lastly, I just wanted to leave you guys with some helpful links in terms of tools that you can use to get a baseline of where you stand right now. There are overall website health report portals everywhere. WooRank is one of the more popular ones. HubSpot has one, but it'll give you a good lay of the land of how a search engine evaluates and views your website and how it ranks it. Google itself has a platform called web.dev/measure that'll give you specificity on the performance aspect of your platform. And this kind of correlates to the core Web Vitals that I was talking about. GT Metrics is another third party that offers these capabilities. And mind you, all of these are at no cost. So you don't necessarily have to worry about subscribing to anything else. Website traffic quality, Google Analytics is almost like a business intelligence platform. It's a treasure trove of information that you can slice and dice to learn a lot more about what your prospects are looking for, what's working, what's not working. So there are very few platforms that kind of beat the Google Analytics and Search Console platforms. And lastly, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're using keywords that don't necessarily reflect the true words that your prospects are searching for, you're not going to get the right kind of traffic. The amount of time, energy, and effort you put into it is not necessarily going to materialize the way you want to. So it is extremely critical that you spend enough time and due diligence on your keywords research to make sure they are exactly what your prospects will want to search for. So it's one key thing we run into working with keywords with our partners and business owners is people want to use their product names and stuff like that or service capabilities and kind of miss out on the use cases. And not just discount the significance of a product name or service capability, but you want a right mix of maybe some people are looking for a use case more than the product itself. So it's that finding that right strategic balance of focus and then finding the appropriate keywords in those areas is well worth it. Otherwise, the rest of the effort may not necessarily yield you any more results. So with that, again, I did not want to spend a lot of time. I think we have an excellent set of panelists. I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page. We're all singing from the same song sheet with regards to what is SEO, why is SEO important, how do we go about it? If we're doing it in-house or working with a partner, how do we evaluate our effectiveness? And at least we know what we need to know. So with that, Jacqueline, I'll probably send it back to you to see if we can kick off the panelists.
All right, thank you so much, Parin, for all of that information. I know SEO can be a bit overwhelming, so being able to break it down into bite-sized pieces is important. So let's start. I'd introduce the panelists when we began, but I'd like to go through and have all the panelists introduce themselves, discuss what company you're from and what industries you serve. So let's go ahead and start with Chris.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Boomhoff, Chief Operating Officer with F.N. Smith Corporation. We're a small family-owned business that builds custom machinery and custom tools for specifically cereal and snack food industry. Our facility's been here since 1948.
Wonderful. And Chris, just quick for the audience, how long have you been working to develop out your SEO program?
I came on board with F.N. Smith about 4 years ago, and within my first month, I reached out to Parin to set up the SEO program and get something going from a marketing perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Brian? You're on mute.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Hi, I'm Brian Black from VMC Chinese Parts in Carbondale, Illinois, and we sell parts for Chinese manufactured ATVs, go-karts, dune buggies, mini bikes, dirt bikes, the power sports industry. But we don't compete with the Japanese folks, Kawasaki, Honda, Yamaha, just Chinese stuff. Manufacturer names you've never heard of. And we started in business about 7 years ago. We do mostly consumer to consumer business, but we do some consumer to business, business to business. Get mixed up. But anyway, that's our market, and we're fairly new. We started in 2015, so we're 7 years old, but we've been growing rapidly. So.
And Brian, how long have you been engaged with an SEO program?
Well, basically from the beginning, we built our website from the ground up and understood right off the bat the on-site SEO portion. It took a meeting with Parin to understand the off-site portion, but so we didn't get into that until a couple of years ago.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, Jake, welcome to the panel.
Sorry, I'm still muted. Yep.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jacob Meyer. I'm the co-owner and chief business development officer for the Armalloy Corporation, Armalloy of Illinois, ME92 operations in Armalloy of Illinois. We're a metal finishing provider, primarily do electroplating, but we also do franchising. We also do metallurgical consulting. And honestly, we serve every industry under the sun. If there's metal, we're somehow involved. It's probably one of the most complicated businesses I think I've ever been in. Acquired the businesses about 5 years ago. They've been around since some have been around for 75 years. So very entrenched in the manufacturing community. Our primary goals are to prevent metal failures, extend the life of components and robotics, keeping them up and producing with the least amount of downtime or good maintenance programs. And then our lab works to provide metal failure analysis or metal failure prevention solutions. So we're a little mixed up in every industry, one way from it could be plastic injection molding to Department of Defense or aerospace, SpaceX, human space exploration, name it, we're probably there.
And how long has the Armalloy been involved in an SEO program?
Honestly, only about 2 years. We actually have 18 locations in 7 countries, and all of them had independent websites. So we're looking to actually give all the domain authority of all those sites to one, call it a juggernaut site. So we've been kind of beta testing on a lot of our older sites to see what works. And we're looking to launch our new collaborative site this year. So 2 years in the making of research and development, and we're looking for full-blown deployment here, hopefully within the next 4 to 6 months.
Okay, and while I have you off of mute, can you tell me how you guys have benefited from using SEO?
Yeah, it really comes down to increased market exposure. You want to have the right customers landing on your site. Parin mentioned earlier, it comes down to your reputation. If you start thinking of your website as a person and less as just somewhere something you have to have, that person has to be of high integrity, say the right things, mean the right things, be able to control the conversation in a way that's useful for the person on the receiving end of the information. And really how it ends up benefiting is you can literally see through the metrics that there's more activity, and if it's the right activity. And those are pretty basic metrics. I've always struggled to really be able to tie marketing and a true ROI together, especially if you don't fully understand all the sales cycles. If you're talking to someone and you carry them into your store and force them to make a purchase, that's easy to quantify or qualify. But when it comes to web activity, you're just looking to see if you're on the right track. So I've really looked at it in terms of the general metrics, and I've ruled it down to about maybe 9 or 10, which anybody can search online. What is your key benefits or key KPI on your website? But I look at it in terms of quote opportunities. How many people are actually asking me for a price for our services? And more importantly, from a reputation standpoint, how many people are requesting just information or want to start a conversation? Most buyers, for us, they're a little weary. They don't want to jump in. They don't want to talk to a salesperson. They want to do their own research. So the biggest benefit opportunity for me and what we've seen and been able to track is how many people have come through the website and wanted to start a conversation with us based on the reputation and the integrity we present on the web. And also, like I say, the last one would be how many new customers were we getting and how many new customers are we getting now? And that has been a really good foundation for us. The new customers, you can see what that first order was. And if you keep tabs on those customers over time, you'll get to see what that full value of that customer is. You know, our average sale could be, say, $500. But if I track that new customer that I got through the website over 3 years, and they purchased from me, you know, say 1,000 times, you can do the math. It was definitely worth just getting that one customer. So yeah, there's been a lot of benefit just on the SEO side, and then tying it to our social media. And we're still actually doing e-blast as well as we add new content to the websites that we work with Parin. And if we can get their attention out there and draw them into the site, as Parin said earlier, that authority just keeps driving you on the up and up.
Thank you so much. Chris, let's go back to you. Can you talk a little bit more about how FN Smith has benefited from an SEO strategy that you put in place? And maybe talk a little bit about if you're using SEO for a bigger business strategy overall, whether it's diversification, cost-effective sales growth. So what are your goals and how have you benefited?
So 4 years ago, when we started to implement it, we didn't have a formal marketing program. With the help of Parin, we came up with what we call a crawl, walk, run strategy. And as we dug into the crawl strategy, we realized there was significant growth potential with existing customers. We work with many of the large Fortune 100 companies in the food industry, and a customer may know us for one thing, not everything we had to offer. So we started to create an awareness program around that. First thing noticed is our website was greatly outdated. But we didn't want to wait till our website was completely changed over to something new. So we implemented a SEO program right away. Parin's team worked with us to help identify phrases we should be thinking about. We're all operations based. We don't think like a marketing team does in that, but it have to be a real simple process for us, coming up with kind of catchphrases that we use when communicating with our customers in that. Developed the program. When we first launched it, I think we had one phrase that showed up in the first 2 pages of a search. And within about 3 months, I'd say 60-70% of the phrases were starting to show up in the first page and second page in that. And we are seeing benefits from it as we increase that awareness with existing customers. Our name spread around the different facilities. It was driving into our website to see what we did offer. And then when our new website launched, we really saw things take off after that, because we made sure we had that on-site presence with the SEOs and the different products we were offering. We saw significant growth last year and even during the pandemic. And a lot of that was because of the marketing efforts that we'd put in place to drive that inbound marketing, drive our customers toward us. We weren't having to do much outreach to go find it.
Thank you for sharing. Brian, do you mind talking a little bit more about your business strategy and how SEO has benefited you guys? And then after that, I've got a follow-up question for you.
Unmuted myself. 7 years ago when we started this business, it didn't matter how you tried to find us on the internet. We were just somewhere on Google page 480. And I spent more on Google AdWords in the first few months than the amount of revenue that was driven to the website, trying to get some people to find us. And obviously I didn't want to spend the rest of this company's life filling Google's pockets with pay-per-click revenue. So we knew we had to do a better job on SEO. And that was the beginning. A lot of our customers look for pictures of what they're looking for. So one of our primary objectives from the beginning was to make sure that our pictures had some sort of searchable terms in the picture description, not just 12345.jpg, so we spent a lot of time doing that. 7 years into this business, about 50% of our business is return business and about 50% is new business. Some of it comes from pay-per-click, but some of it comes from organic SEO. I mentioned earlier you couldn't find us originally, but due to our efforts and Parin's efforts, most of the keywords we track now are in the top 10, and we actually aim for the top 3. And if you're not on the first page, you might as well not be on Google. That's just kind of the way it is. So you have to get up there as high as you can in order for your customers to find you. And that's where we are driving towards all the time. It's a lot of effort put into it. You got a follow-up question?
Yep, sorry, Parin dropped out, so I had to let him back into the
Okay.
panel. So, when you first started, so you talked a little bit about, you had started with pay-per-click and paid ads. So those give you kind of that short-term benefits. However, they're not always sustainable from a budgetary perspective. So can you talk to us a little bit about if you were skeptical about going from pay-per-click to organic SEO practices, or what did that journey look like for you?
Well, I think you have to start out with pay-per-click in order to build the organic, or at least it kind of goes hand in hand. And I'm still a huge pay-per-click advocate. We use it now as kind of a handle that we can turn a little more on or off. I like to keep my pay-per-click to 10% of my revenue. It sounds like quite a bit probably, but it drives quite a bit of business. But if we're too busy, or if I'm short on employees or something like that, I just turn the handle down a little bit. And then if we need a little bit more business, I turn it up. I don't think you can ever get away from pay-per-click. I don't care how good you are. What I have found is that the customers that are searching for us, we may be the first in the organic listing, or first, second, or third, but they'll still hit the pay-per-click one at the top. So we're not going to get away from pay-per-click. Obviously, we want to drive organic business, which is sort of free after you make the investment. But you have to do both, in my opinion, to keep business going. And we sell to a ton of customers. All of those little units that I described are the ones that are sold at Rural King and the used car lots and Walmart and Sam's and things like that. So lots and lots of those units out there. And we pick up about 2,000 to 3,000 new customers a month find us. And I'm not sure whether they all find us through pay-per-click or find us organically, and it doesn't make any difference to me as long as they'll try us one time. And I know that half of our business comes from repeat customers. So that's kind of our philosophy, is just keep on feeding more customers to us, and we'll grow from there. So
Thank you. So Parin, I have a question for you, because we're talking a little bit about pay-per-click versus organic SEO. Is there a way to determine where your traffic is coming in, whether it's from pay-per-click or from your organic SEO?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And not just that, there's enough technology now available where people calling in, you could track if that incoming call is coming in because of organic search versus somebody who already knows you, or somebody who found you through pay-per-click or something like that. And in fact, actually, one of the deliverables that we have is, if a customer allows us, we will enable that feature. And a lot of times what we've seen is companies like that, because business owners like Jake or like Chris or even Brian will want to know how the incoming prospects are talked to, what qualifying questions are being asked. And it kind of sort of becomes a sales training tool over a period of time. And they can then bring in congruency in terms of how the calls are handled, how the calls are routed. Plus, of course, from an attribution standpoint, it makes it that much more easier to see the true ROI associated with it. I hope that answers your question. But Jacqueline, I was wondering if I have permission to ask Brian a question, or for that matter, anybody. But I know for sure that that Brian would have a feel for this question.
I will allow it.
Brian, so Brian, I'm looking for just an objective answer, not because we work with you on the SEO side, but what is your experience, anecdotal or quantitatively, in terms of the quality of leads you get from paid versus SEO, or even maybe not quality of leads, maybe it is cost per conversion or something like that? Because we get that question a lot in terms of how to do a mix, how to manage that budget, which one is better, which one isn't. And I'm just curious, because you are in this business where e-commerce is a significant part of your business model, you have enough critical mass to kind of get a perspective saying that to you, this is how it has panned out. Or maybe it doesn't, maybe they are indifferent, and that's fine too. I'm just curious on your take.
I don't know if I have better quality leads from organic versus paid or not,
Okay.
to be honest
Okay.
with you. We sell 3% of the people that come to our website overall, or at least number of sessions. But I don't know if I close a bigger percentage that came organically or that come. And
That's interesting.
Do you mind if I jump in on that one, Parin?
Sure.
Yeah, I ran into, I kind of had the same question a while back, and you know, I guess I'm hyper focused on the organic side of it, and the reason why is because when we really started breaking down our customers and who our targets are, who are these people, and I hate the fact that, you know, we have to stereotype to do that, but let's face it, that's, you know, we have targets. Yeah, and you know, so I broke it down into 3 basic categories, and then started looking at the who benefits in those categories and why are they doing it. You know, let's call this to keep it simple, the easy market, the middle market, and the hard market. The easy market are going to be brand aware people knowing exactly what they're looking for. The lowest of the hanging fruit, they are looking for marketing services, or they're looking for go-kart wheels, or whatever the parts are. So a good SEO partner, even just a basic strategy, should be able to get you those keywords pretty quickly. The hard market is people that maybe already know your brand or know your types of products, but have decided that it's not a good fit for them. Or maybe they got burned in the past. You know, there's so many reasons why they don't want to make the purchase, but you keep coming up in front of them. The most valuable market to me was the middle market. And this is why I feel that the organic is so powerful. I call it the researchers market. People that don't know what they're looking for quite yet. You know, we have a really tough one. You know, we're trying to prevent metal failures or eliminate metal failures. We have all these great products, all these great services. Maybe nobody knows our brand, and if they do, they fall into the easy market. So when you start looking for what do people research and the type of person that's researching for it, be it whether it's a buyer or an engineer or whatever, break down those people and say what are their principles, what are their values, and then start looking for words that you can kind of keyword towards that, because they're researching blindly, looking for, well, you know, let me break it down even more. If you have a symptom, if you have a rash on your finger, or if you start getting the sniffles, you start searching symptoms online, right? You don't start searching for the disease that you think you might already have, and maybe you do, that would fit under the easy market. So once you start thinking as researching for how would someone get there, it really changes the game. And we ended up doing an exercise of just 2 lines in Excel, and just every word that seemed to make sense. You know, whether it was application or engineering, you know, all listed all the customers, and then we made it so we could index them. And it was really kind of a fun exercise, because when we started playing with that, we could see our customers better before they could even start researching and finding us. In fact, we kind of reorganized our entire business based on how our customers perceive us in that research world, knowing that this is the future of marketing and how people are making decisions before they make a purchase, and that they need these things immediately. And that indexable piece, it came the way we did it was, applications, common misspellings. We identified our competitors, direct and indirect, the branches of our target personas, the principles of those personas, the values, symptoms and adjectives, what we thought were the key phrases, and these are all in the right side of the column versus the word itself, and then we can sort by each one. What we learned is that the thesaurus and synonyms and adjectives were the most valuable words that we can do. I may describe something one way or search something another way. Brian, you might search it another way. Someone in the UP of Michigan speaks a slightly different dialect than someone in Texas in the way they search. So the adjectives that I'm using are based on probably within the four walls of my business and everyone that I'm speaking to on a regular basis. So using that, we all of a sudden within 2 weeks had over 3,000 keywords that we want to use. Obviously that wouldn't be a good idea because our website would just be a mess, but we can reorganize them and run them through programs like SEMrush or Ask the Public and prioritize or Talk to Parin and prioritize those words that actually get the most activity. When we started doing SEO for even our brand before, we would type in our name and 5 of our competitors would come up, some of them in ads and some of them organically. And it's like, this is a very weird spelling company. We should come up first naturally, but everyone else was already working against us. Today, when you type in our brand name, we actually take up the first 10 pages of Google. So trying to build a juggernaut site around that, we personally as a company don't want the top 10 results. We want the top 10 pages. And I know we're kind of taking a monstrous approach to it, but our budget on it really hasn't changed. It's been pretty modest. But doing the exercise of synonyms, the thesaurus became our biggest friend. And then when you look at your direct competitors, type in those words and whatever they come up, it shows you what their keywords are. Google and Bing bold those keywords. So the strategy of that has really helped us kind of decide how we're even rewriting our site, rewriting our content, and that power of that organic. If we can take it organically, we'll take it hands down. I still believe in ads, and you're still gonna have to work with them. But if Google trusts you, I promise you, your customers will trust you as well.
Thank you for sharing that experience. So that seems like a lot and a pretty big process to take on your own, or if you don't have a marketing department. So let's ask Chris, can you talk to us about how demanding of your time and energy it might have been for you to implement an SEO program?
Listening to Jake, I didn't put enough time into it, so I'm going to go back and revamp what we did. No, it actually wasn't too demanding, right? Working with Parin's team, they helped us come up with some phrases we should be considering, would challenge us in some things. They would hear us talk just in general about our product and our services, and from there help us develop some phrases. And we've changed it a few times since then. I think we managed just a simple list of 25 phrases. But we've gone through and refreshed it every 6 months or so just to see if we can get some change in traffic in that. But it really wasn't too complicated. It was, really just having the team just have a conversation and grabbing those phrases. This is how we talk. Much like Jake said, in our 4 walls, we have a certain way of talking, and we don't necessarily interact with buyers per se. Our team interacts with maintenance personnel, operations managers, engineers, and that. So those are the people doing searches on us. So understanding who our audience is was a piece of it.
Yeah, and not to downplay too much. Even we didn't use a large marketing team to do this exercise. It was done up 2 people over, I'd say 3 weeks, and probably combined 40 hours of invested into it. So 2 people, 20 hours over 3 weeks. And we just kept the list in a shared document. And every time we'd hear something or think of something, we'd just add it to this list. And yeah, so it doesn't take a lot to invest in, just keep the list open and just keep it in the back of your mind and just keep adding things to that list. And you'd be surprised before you know it, you have thousands of words and phrases that could be leveraged by, your marketing team, or if you have an internal marketing department.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing. We got a list on a shared drive. We just keep adding to it.
Yep.
What about you, Brian? Has your SEO program and process been super demanding, or where do you find, what's that balance between time and cost and bandwidth from your team
Well, I would say um, about half of my time is spent building listings and describing things. And as you're doing that, you're always including SEO in the process. Um, in addition, the person in the next office over here is doing the photographs for the website. And in addition to editing photographs, naming photographs is the other thing that he's doing. So probably 10% of his time is taken with SEO. Um, you know, this is on-site SEO, and I went to a seminar that you guys sponsored several years ago, pre-COVID, where Parin was there, and learned a lot about the offsite SEO that I was not doing at all. I guess I was depending on my customers and things to do it for me. But I realized at that time that I didn't have time to do it too, nor did I want to get up to speed on it, because it's just one more thing that I'd have to do. So we do work with Parin's team on a year-to-year basis. I think it's a great investment for us. I would recommend other people do it. He's got folks that are absolutely great at building backlinks and other domains to refer to our website, and that's stuff I don't have to do. And I track them using Ahrefs. I don't know how many of you guys use Ahrefs, but that's a website that is also gives you a lot of information about your site and your competitors and things like that. And I told them up front that I use that to track, and so they have my sign-on credentials for Ahrefs, and so they can see also what I'm seeing as far as how many backlinks are being built and referring domains and things like that, how my keywords rank. But it's been a good investment for us to use Parin, but I still think you got to do the bunch of it yourself too. They are not running my business, and so they have to have input from me to do what they do, and it's a good partnership, but it does take work on your part too. Incidentally, Jake, I wrote down synonyms, adjectives, and customers' problems, so I'll start working on those here this week too. So
yeah, reach out anytime. We've got some cool tools that we built. We service, I think I said, so many industries. It can get scary at times, especially with volatility in politics and the economy, inflation, all those scary words. But what I will say is, if your customers are finding you, it's pretty much the best feeling in the world, right? You're trying to solve a problem in the world, whether it's someone's hobby or a manufacturing issue or a medical issue, whatever it could be. So it feels pretty good to be validated when someone's coming to your site and finding the information that they need. And then from the business side of it, so many businesses, especially American manufacturers, struggle to stay afloat because they're really good at what they do, but they're not seen for what they do. And we're kind of stuck with the customers that we have more times than not. And that can get pretty dangerous with the customers controlling your company. You can't raise your prices. You can't keep up with a lot of things. You're really, I guess, the tail's wagging the dog is the metaphor for that. If you're getting enough traffic and you're getting enough customer requests, you can start selecting the right customers for your business, selecting the customers that best suit your culture and what you're trying to, like-minded folks that maybe if you're super progressive about innovation, or maybe it's just on overdoing it on quality and maybe just having the perfect product, or in some cases you want to be the cheapest guy on the block, whatever that value of your company is, and if you want to maintain that, you need a diverse customer base that you get to choose who your customers are. And there's no better way to have that opportunity than people literally looking and finding you and then aligning with you in your messaging. So once that happens, there's a good chance, short of them just needing your product, fitting the culture of your business. If you're high quality, people will pay for that. The right customer will pay for the right services. There's always somebody cheaper. There's always somebody that more expensive even, but it's finding the right partner in the game. And SEO can help you get there. You just need more people to talk to until you find the right circle of customers.
Thank you so much. So Parin, I'm going to ask this question for you as we round out the last 4 minutes of our panel discussion. So Chris, let's pick on you for a little bit. Would you categorize SEO as just part of the cost of doing business in today's time, or is it something different?
But it is cost of doing business. It's just something that I don't dare say must do, but it's something we're going to do to stay competitive and out there in front of everybody.
All right, well, we can go down the line. Brian, how about you?
Muting. I think it's a fundamental cost of business, just like employees and bricks and mortar and stuff like that. If you're going to continue in this e-commerce computerized world that we've created. So.
And what about you, Jake?
Certainly. It's, traditional marketing has changed. Marketing used to be made up about, 40 or 50 different spokes in a wheel. Used to be able to do mailers, used to be able to cold call people, knock on doors, even email campaigns. And with all the new privacy restrictions that are coming down the pipe and the access to data, everybody's kind of closing up. It's really hard to build a relationship these days, or at least get your foot in the door to be able to start that conversation. I think all of Europe now, you can't email somebody unless they ask you or sign up to be emailed to. California is usually a quick indicator. California has jumped on that bandwagon. So if the number one marketing strategy right now is email campaigns and privacy is coming down, we have to look at what that number two is, and SEO is by far the next step. So cost of doing business, I think today, it's not just the cost of doing business, it is business. Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to do it without it within the next 10 years.
Thank you. Parin, you've got 1 minute to speak on any topic or ask a question that you'd like.
No, I think I'm going to second everything that has been said. And we do use the term cost of doing business specifically because of the perspective that it has to a business owner. And to Jake's point, people are looking for things online. They're finding partners, shortlisting partners online before they even have that first conversation. So it is imperative for a business. It's not about just I have a website and I'm done. Having a website that is compliant to the 21st century is step 1 of 4, right? So I want to make sure people understand that it isn't necessarily a luxury of marketing. It is cost of doing business. The one thing I will say is we've had a plethora of customers with a variety of experiences. And one of the biggest one that stands out is we have a metal forger, and she uses SEO. And one time there's a jeweler who contacted her, and it was a bit eye-opening as to why a jeweler would contact a metal forger. And it turned out that in this case, he was looking for a custom drum set, and he wanted to embed specific kinds of jewels in certain areas, and he needed those areas forged so that he could sell it at a premium. And for this forger, clearly it was not their core business strategy. But from their perspective, it was an extremely high margin business because it was very custom and it filled in areas where there had lead times between orders. So it was those one-off things that helped fill their capacity with high margins. So this is something where from their perspective was they would never allocate resources to go procure this kind of business. But if it were to come to them and works for them operationally or logistically where they can fill capacity, but at the same time have high margins, it would be great. So again, this is one example where they would never have thought of something like this, but it is SEO that kind of brought something like that to light for them. And it changed the way they started doing business. So SEO is a game changer. That's how I'll end it.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Parin from Strat Marketing, Chris from FN Smith, Brian, I'm lost in my notes, VMC Chinese Parts, and Jacob from the Armaloy Corporation for being wonderful panelists, for talking to us about SEO. I know it can be a complicated thing, but it is necessary for all of you guys to get that ticket to the game so you can be found. Just a reminder, be expecting an email within the next few days of the recording of this amazing panel discussion and information. And on behalf of IMEC and IMA, we thank you all for taking the time with us today. And hopefully we can help improve your marketing strategy and just get to the game. If you guys are interested in finding out more of our events, you could go to imec.org/events. We have tons of offerings on many topics all the time. So thank you all so much. I appreciate your time and your energy, and feel free to connect with us and ask questions after the fact if that's your prerogative. Have a wonderful day and a great holiday week next week.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you.
A pleasure.